Coming up on Network Africa. Sudan Deputy Junta Chief calls 2021 military coup a mistake. Burkina Faso says French military operations officially over. Plus, Southern Africa braces itself for Cyclone Freddy. Hello and welcome to the program this week. I'm Anne Nwawadu. We begin with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
Thousands of members of Tunisia's powerful Tunisian General Labour Union took to the streets of 8 cities on Saturday to protest against President Kais Saied's policies, accusing him of trying to stifle basic freedoms, including union rights. The protest marked an escalation in the union's confrontation with Saied and followed its criticism of the recent arrest of several anti-government figures, including politicians, a journalist, 2 judges, and a senior UGTT official. The coordinated arrests have raised fears of wider crackdown on dissent and prompted the UN Human Rights Office to call for the detainees' immediate release. More demonstrations are planned in other cities in the coming days, concluding with a rally in the capital Tunis early next month. Still on Saturday, senior Israeli diplomat was removed from the African Union's annual summit in Ethiopia as a dispute over Israel's accreditation to the bloc escalated. However, chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mohammed, told the media that an investigation into how Ambassador Shawan Bali was erroneously accredited will be launched.
We have not invited any Israeli to this assembly. We have noted that somebody entered the hall with a badge. We asked the individual to quickly leave the hall. This is a person who does not reside in Ethiopia, and we are conducting investigations to know how the individual got accredited. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen of the press, we have not invited any Israeli authorities. We are going to push this investigation to the fullest to know where the error was coming from.
Meanwhile, the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, said on Saturday that African countries are getting a raw deal from the international financial system, which charges them extortionate interest rates as they announced $250 million in crisis funding, including for famine risk on the continent.
Investing in Africa pathways to prosperity requires finance, and developing countries are repeatedly left in the lurch. The global financial system routinely denies them debt relief and concessional financing while charging extortionate interest rates. As a result, vital systems are starved of investment, from health and education to green technology, social protection, and the creation of new sustainable jobs.
He adds that the UN will spend $250 million from its emergency fund, the largest ever allocation to respond to several crises around the world, including helping communities at risk of famine in Africa. Mr. Guterres made this disclosure at the opening ceremony of the annual African Union Summit in Ethiopia. The summit also focuses on deepening food and security crisis on the continent. The 36th Ordinary Session of the African Union Assembly concluded on Sunday in the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa.
This summit focused on key issues.
This year's AU Summit from February 18th to 19th, under the theme of the Year of Acceleration of the African Continental Free Trade Area Implementation, has brought together leaders from 55 African nations, UN officials, and leaders of various international organizations at the AU headquarters in Ethiopia.
Over in Sudan, where the deputy head of the country's ruling council, Mohamed Daglo, has called the 2021 military coup a mistake. In a televised address, Mr. Daglo said it had become a getaway for the remnants of the former regime of Omar al-Bashir, who was deposed 2 years earlier. He said he had made mistakes and that lending support to the latest coup was one of them. Hailing December's deal to transition Sudan to civilian rule, Mr. Daglo promised to pursue security reforms, including integrating his RSF paramilitary group into the national army. Sudan has been in economic and political turmoil since 2021 when General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan-led Junta overthrew and took over power from the civilian-led transitional government, derailing the transition to civilian rule following Mr. Bashir's 2019 ouster. To other stories now, Burkina Faso has announced that operations by the French army in the jihadist-hit West African state were officially over after bilateral relations soared in recent months. Senior officers from Burkina Faso and French forces in the country held a flag-lowering ceremony to mark the occasion at a camp on the outskirts of the capital, Ouagadougou.
France and Burkina Faso have officially marked the end of French military operations in the West African nation. The Burkinabe Armed Forces made this known after a flag-lowering ceremony at the French Special Forces camp a day earlier. In January, Burkina Faso gave France 1 month to withdraw its troops as it ended a military accord that allowed French troops to fight insurgents on its territory, citing a wish for the country to defend itself. Their departure marks a new chapter in Burkina's battle with Islamist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State, which have taken over large swaths of land and displaced millions of people in the wider Sahel region to the south of the Sahara. Over the past week, a small group of anti-French protesters met each evening in the capital, Ouagadougou, to watch out for signs of French withdrawal.
We don't want them to stay 1 more minute here. They need to leave Burkina Faso. We don't want them on our territory because when they are here and our people die, they do nothing. If they stay beyond the exit date, authorities should expect us in their base because we are going to go there.
Some of the group also held Russian flags, a sign of the complicated political undercurrents shaping the region. Both Burkina Faso and neighboring Mali are ruled by military juntas and that seized power by force in the last 2 years, promising to improve security and look beyond their traditional allies for support. France withdrew its forces from Mali last year after the junta there started working with Russian military contractors.
Let's now bring in African Affairs analyst Oluseyi Adeyemo, who joins us virtually from the Shomolu area of Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you, Anne, for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you today.
All right. So Burkina Faso marks the end of the French military operations on its soil. It has done that already. What does this mean for the country?
In a nutshell, more work. It's unfortunate that this is happening because for me, there's been a very, very strained relationship between France and its former colonial countries and territories. So they've had problems last year, like you said in your report. They had to leave Mali. So Burkina Faso and the people, are being told that what they need to do is to get France out of the picture. The question is, what are they going to gain from that? You have African Union troops on ground. You have their own army on ground, plus France, and they were unable to achieve the kind of result they wanted, to the extent that 40% of Burkina Faso have been overrun by the jihadists. Now that they have taken out the French people, the question is, you had all of that in place, you were unable to defend your territory or your country. Now that you have the French people who in some way were leading because of their advanced technology and skill at war. So in my opinion, it means more work to them, and they must be ready to do more to be able to protect their territory.
So if the government now is asking the military, the French troops, to leave the country within 1 month, one would want to wonder, weren't they deployed in the West African nation as far back as 2012 as part of a campaign to drive out rebel groups that control the vast swaths of the country?
I mean, truth of the matter is, they were able to deploy all of this, but the results have not come. Again, I need to speak to that. Truth of the matter is, if French or the France have been able to deliver the expectation of the people, if by now they had gotten 20% out of the 40% that was taken away, maybe the clamor or the general consensus by the people that they should leave their country will not be there. So the truth is, the result is not coming through. French and UN and the rest of the troops on ground have not been able to deliver the much expected, sort of reclaiming of the territory. And so I'm not surprised that the people have come together and say that we don't want them more on our soil, because this is not for free. Truth is, all of us must understand that when you have these kind of people on your territory, you're losing something. You're paying in one way or the other, whether by your natural resources or something, you're paying back. And so if you're paying or investing and you're not getting return on your investment, I know that at some point in time you will have a situation like this where they will be told to leave the land.
We recall last year, France also withdrew its forces from Mali after the junta there started working with the Russian military contractors. But is there any connection with the Russian Wagner group in all of this?
Truth of the matter is, as far as I'm concerned, Russia have a need to sort of have their presence in Africa. So they're going all around. As we speak, they're in South Africa. The Minister of, External Affairs have been there twice, in recent times. They're not too very popular all over the world because of the invasion in Ukraine. And so they are doing everything that they can to make sure that they get their presence in Africa, because, again, we all must recognize the fact that Africa is the beautiful bride. Everybody wants to have their leg in Africa in one way or the other. So, yes, there's some level of connection between what happened in Mali and these. They were both, former colonies of France, and economically and otherwise, France has continued to have very, very strong presence in all of their colony. And unfortunately, it is clear to everyone that France is, gaining more than the colonies themselves. So you would have, reprisals like this, you have outcries like this, where people would say, enough of this, we don't want you again. So yes, you're right, there's a very, very, direct connection between what happened in Mali last year and what is happening in Burkina Faso right now.
All right, let me take you back to what you said about countries will have to pay back some way or the other, somehow. Does this departure now mark another significant step, in your own opinion, in scaling down France's military presence in that region?
Like I said, more work. It's a very, very major problem, because at the end of the day, for me, this sort of tells African leaders. So governance is not a Tea Party kind of thing. You have a lot of work to do. Look, at the end of the day, it is clear, like I analyzed earlier, that there are a lot of foot on ground, but results are not being gotten, because the kind of negotiation, the kind of indigenous and local engagement that ought to go is not going in sufficiently enough. And it is very clear that you would only get the kind of result that you want if you have very, very deliberate and intelligent leaders in Africa. At the end of the day, the work or the buck stops on our table. We cannot expect the rest of the world to do the work we're meant to do for ourselves. So our leaders, those who vow to become our leaders, right now Nigeria is going into election in some few days. The question we need to ask ourselves is, do they understand that security is a lot of work and they need to be deliberate? It is not a Tea Party. You just don't go into governance just believing that, so I am ready to go and just eat or be fed. Truth of the matter is, there are rumors all over the place that the reason why the Junta wants the Russian presence is because they believe that it will help them to be able to stay in office. But that should not be the reason for you getting any help from anywhere. It should be for the people. It should be for you making sure that your country is properly protected.
All right, that's a good place to end this discussion. Thank you very much. African Affairs Analyst, Mr. Oluseyi Adeyemo, thanks a lot for your time on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Still ahead on the program, Nigerian music stars Tems, Rema and Burna Boy performed during the halftime at the 2023 NBA All-Stars Games. I'll bring you the details in a moment. Welcome back. Now let's check on the weather, shall we? Flights and public transport in Mauritius have been disrupted amid a warning of an approaching intense tropical cyclone. The Mauritius Meteorological Services said a very intense tropical cyclone, Freddy, was centered at about 275 kilometers to the northeast of Mauritius, moving west at a speed of 30 kilometers per hour. The weather agency warned people not to go to the sea, advising the public to follow all precautions and stay safe in places. The country's national carrier, Air Mauritius, issued a schedule of flights that's all been cancelled. Meanwhile, southern Africa is bracing for Cyclone Freddy, which is expected to make landfall in Madagascar today with 2 million people in its path, and that's according to the United Nations. Madagascar has warned of potential damage from heavy rains, strong winds and storm. Reports suggest the cyclone could affect nations along the coast of Tanzania to South Africa. Early last year, southern African countries were battered by 6 severe storms that killed at least 890 people. In the meantime, officials in South Africa have said that they are continuing to monitor communities experiencing flooding following weeks of heavy rains. The rains have been brought on by the global La Nina weather phenomenon, which occurs in the Pacific Ocean. Over the weekend in Gauteng province, officials opened several floodgates to ease the pressure from the Vaal Dam, one of the largest in the province. This meant deliberately flooding some properties near the dam. Officials have said this is to prevent the massive dam from collapsing, thereby endangering thousands of people in the region. They have also advised people living near the Vaal River to consider moving to higher grounds until the water subsides. Nigerian music stars Tems. Welcome. We'll bring you more stories. Before that, Nigerian immigration officers are in southern Africa for an intervention to help clear passport application backlogs that have left thousands of Nigerians frustrated. We caught up with them in Johannesburg, South Africa, where hundreds of Nigerians have been living up to the Consulate General to have all their passports sorted. The Consul General, Mr. Andrew Edie, says that hopefully in its next 30 days, every Nigerian in South Africa indeed will have a passport sorted.
Many Nigerians in South Africa and neighboring countries have been heaving a sigh of relief since this notice of intervention by the delegation of the Nigerian Immigration Service went out. Their mission is to clear the backlog of applications for passports running into thousands.
Essentially, what they're here to do is to expedite the capturing and production of passports to needy Nigerians. They've been at work since their arrival on the 17th. You can see the turnout today, hopefully. In the next 15-20 days. That's my objective. We should be able to clear all pending passport applications.
Everyone in that huge crowd has a story of long waits and frustration.
Let me call it a year now. You know, they for the first time when you come to capture, they give you dates, your dates, keep on. But as God may have it, the consulate make everything easier for everybody. So everybody are coming from far away in order to get their passport.
my passport expired. I tried to went home to do the passport, but the airline refused to board me in. So that's why I'm here today, because they say that they are officials that come from Nigeria. So they give date from 17th to 24th. So that's why I'm here today.
No, my own is lost passport. So my own is another procedure. Yeah, but I've gotten it. I think they gave me 6 weeks to collect it. Yeah.
Since the intervention began last Friday, the immigration officers have fast-tracked the usually lengthy waiting period within the passport application process, mostly brought about by an inadequate supply of passport booklets to the missions. Hopefully, the backlog will be a thing of the past soon.
We presently contend with close to 5,000 applications for passports. And since the commencement, we just started on the 18th. On the 18th, our objective is to strive to produce 200 passports per day. And that should give us a completion time of about 20 to 30 days.
A lot of us are struggling a lot about this passport. Yeah, so far I'm happy. Yeah, I'm getting a help. Yeah, I only got to know about this information 3 days ago, and likely I make it from Mpumalanga to Johannesburg to capture. I'm so happy so far.
We wish this passport can be at least 10 years. It could be more beneficial for us than always coming after 5 years. It's more okay for us to come after 10 years, not 5 years, then we still come here and renew. So it's just like that.
After Johannesburg, the officers who have already intervened in neighboring Botswana will be headed to other provinces in South Africa and then move on to neighboring countries like Lesotho, Mozambique, and the Kingdom of Eswatini. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
And finally, on the program, Burna Boy, Rema and Thames performed at the 2023 NBA All-Star Game halftime, which is one of the biggest sporting events in the United States. The 3 Nigerian artists took turns to give an Afrobeat-themed performance at the halftime show. Burna Boy began by giving an energetic performance of some of his hit songs, including Anybody, It's Plenty, Last Last and Alone. Rema followed with renditions of his songs Calm Down and Holiday. For Thames, she was the one who just won her first Grammy for the Best Melodic Rap Performance in collaboration with Future and Drake. She performed a number of her own songs backed by dancers. Well, that's where we end it on Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu. Stay safe.